Today I'm going to skip ahead in the book a little bit, and we're going to talk about Chapter 8, which are Internet Resources and Technologies. I want to do that because I want you to kind of get familiar with that early in the class. If you're not, if you feel a little bit lost, don't worry about it. We'll come back to a lot of this stuff later in the course, but I at least want to get you familiar with the resources on the internet early in the class. Okay. To begin with, I want to kind of tell you kind of where I came from. I started studying the law back in the early 1990s when I went to law school, and internet resources and CD-ROMs, all that type of stuff were very new and they were very expensive. So when I started out, we kind of did our legal research kind of the old school way. And I tend to, do that myself. I'll give you a little spiel on how I do legal research, maybe in this lecture, but maybe later on in the class. So just be aware that a lot of people are more comfortable with this stuff than I am. Now I'm going to start with like slide 3, and I want to make a couple of comments about it. The second point heading there talks about the reality being is that the use of computers and the internet for legal research has become an integral part of today's practice and legal education, and that's true. And ideally, I would prefer if you had a subscription to Lexis or Westlaw with this class, but we don't. So I'll teach you other ways to to do stuff. But the last bullet point is the one I want to talk about, which is CLAR is not intended to replace manual research, and I agree that it's best used in companion with print resources. Generally, when I start stuff, I go to the print first. If I have the time to go to a law library or something like that, and then I'll supplement it with internet research. Other people who are more comfortable with that type of stuff will just go, log on their computer and bam, just start searching away. But I don't like to read things on the computer screen. My eyes get tired, things like that. And of course, you can print stuff out, but I generally like to go like one of my mentors, John Hall, said. He said I like to smell the law, and I think that's kind of true. So when are some of the best times to use online research? Okay, one is when currency, or meaning something that happened recently, is very critical. And the main reason for that is a lot of times you'll find stuff online that isn't in print yet. Sometimes print resources are unavailable to you. Maybe you're researching an issue of out-of-state law and you don't have access to those materials. Some information just simply isn't published in paper format. And new and emerging areas of law where things are kind of constantly changing. Generally, you'll find more resources on the internet than you'll do with the books. Okay. Sometimes online versions of stuff are easier to use than print counterparts, so I'll talk more about that later. And we can look for things in a more specific manner using search terms and engines, and the main reason is for site checking that I'll discuss in detail in a little bit. Now, when should we use the good old-fashioned paper? Sometimes older materials you won't be able to find online. They say dealing with a procedural evidentiary question of law. I don't necessarily think that's true, but they put it down there. If you know little about an area of the law you're researching, this is a big one for me. Generally, we're going to talk about how I do legal research later in the class. I like to start with secondary materials, and I like to literally pull a legal encyclopedia or a treatise on a subject off the shelf and summarize it, or get a good background on it. And generally, I like to use secondary print materials to do that. So when we're just trying to get a general overview of the law, A secondary print material will work. Like I said, I don't like reading lots of stuff on the screen myself. Um, Other things that they talk about, a concept can be phrased in many different ways using multiple synonyms. And search terms are too common or ambiguous. And we'll talk about how to do searches using computer materials later, because if you don't know the right words to enter, you know, you're not going to get something good out if you don't formulate what we call a really good query. The computer's only going to be able to respond to the question you ask it. And so asking the right question, using the right language a lot of times is really really important. Okay, so what types of materials are out there on the net or available, digitally as opposed to in print? Commercial online subscription databases, computer disks, and the internet. And computer desks are kind of going by the wayside. When I first started practicing law, computer disks were all the rage because the internet, even though it had been invented allegedly by Al Gore, right? It wasn't the modern internet that all love today. It was kind of very basic. It was really slow, and we didn't have things like Google out there to help you. So let's talk about the two largest online subscription databases. They're also the two largest print legal publishers in America, and those two are LexisNexis and Westlaw. Okay, and I need to give you a little background on kind of the battle between the two. Okay, these two companies are very intensely competitive. They're always looking for new customers. They're always trying to get attorneys to switch to one or the other because they make money by having attorneys subscribe to their services. Okay, so all the time when I had my solo practice, if I was on Lexis, the Lexis rep would call me up, make sure I'm happy. But the Westlaw rep would also try to come in and try to get me to change. And generally, attorneys, for the most part, will go for who's ever offering them the best, cheapest plan for the databases or information that is relevant to their practice. Okay. Now, that being said, if I have to choose between the two, I definitely prefer LexisNexis. The reason being is they have, in terms of California law, they have some of the best practice guides that are specific to California law, and Westlaw does not offer those. That being said, if Westlaw has been cheaper, I've switched to Westlaw before. But the point is when you get out there working for an attorney, you need to be familiar with both of them because you're never going to know which one they're going to have or if they're going to have one at all, and you're going to have to go on to the law library and log on to Lexis or Westlaw. Here in Kerr County, the law library has access to both. Now, there are other web-based subscription services out there as well, like Lois Law and Versus Law, and they're a lot cheaper than Lexis and Westlaw. But most attorneys, unless they have a specialized practice, will go with one of the main two because of the features available to them and the different variety of practice materials, particularly secondary materials. If you're just looking for a statute, or if you're just looking for a particular case, you can probably go with one of the cheaper databases. The other thing that the big ones do is they provide, when let's say we're researching a case and we need to read a case, they're going to provide what's called head notes, which are summaries of the issues and the law. I don't want to get into head notes now. We'll get into that later. But that's one of the main advantages is they provide summaries of the case and summaries of the key issues of law in the case. And it'll give us links to other places we can go to look at cases with similar issues.
With Time Matters, you can save online research to your firm's database, where you can assist.
One of the main features that Lexis has that that Westlaw does not is Shepard citation services. Okay, now without a doubt, the number one reason attorneys like me subscribe to an online database is not necessarily because of the range of materials. It's because they have Shepardizing. Okay, and Westlaw has a thing called Keysight, and it works the same. And in the old days when I started practicing law, Shepardizing, which is basically updating the law, and what I mean by updating, I mean making sure that when we cite a case before a judge, that it's still good law, that it hasn't been overruled by another case, or it hasn't been criticized by other cases or distinguished by other cases. And I'll get more into this. We'll have a whole week on Shepardizing. But the point I'm trying to make now is, in the old days, you had to do that by paper, and it was a total pain in the ass. I mean, it took up a ton of time. Now, why did you have to do it? Okay, I'm going to say this again when we get to Shepardizing in class. Failure to Shepardize is malpractice. I'll say it again. Failure to Shepardize is malpractice, because you cannot bring law before a judge that has been overruled or, nullified by a statute, something like that. Okay, that is a big blowout. And Shepard's is not only a way to make sure that the law is still good that we're citing, but we can also use it to find other cases that have been discussed by the particular case. So we can use it actually as a finding tool to find other cases. Maybe we're citing a case before a judge, and then we Shepardize it, and it pulls up all the cases that discuss that particular case after the one case was decided. And I find another case that's even closer on the facts or closer to the issue at hand, and maybe I want to cite that one instead. Okay, we'll get more into this later on in class, but Shepard's is really, really critical. It just saves you so much time. Now, Westlaw has something similar. It's called Keysight, and we'll deal with that when we get into Shepardizing later. But it's exactly the same thing, except it's a different type of system. Now, LexisNexis provides other things other than cases and legal treatises or secondary materials and statutes. They have other services. They cost more to subscribe to, but they have things like Verdict and Settlement Analyzer, where you can see what other districts have done if you have a similar case and you're trying to resolve it. They have information to track legislation through the legislative process, and they have all. I mean, they have subscriptions to newspapers if you want to get the New York Times online. They have all kinds of different databases that you can buy, but they do cost more. Another nice feature that they have is if you're monitoring a particular issue or a case or a bill that's going through the legislature, they have a service that will, you just kind of click on it, and it will allow you to track things, significant developments in the law or significant developments in a case, whether it's whatever it might be. And so one of the things you can do is you can hit the case tracker or the law tracker, and they'll email you updates and make sure that you're still current on the. As I said, I'm on slide 16. Westlaw's Shepardized system is called Keysight. It's just as good. It's just different. Now, why doesn't Westlaw have Shepard's? Because Shepard's is an independent company, and they signed a deal to make more money with LexisNexis than they did with Westlaw. So what Westlaw had to do was actually go out and create their own Shepherd system, which was a big cost to them, but they absolutely had to do it because, like I said, Shepherdizing is the #1 reason that we subscribe to online services. And so Westlaw kind of had to build their own from scratch. Westlaw also has similar databases to LexisNexis as well. I don't really need to go into them, but the point I want to make right now is Westlaw has certain databases that are only Westlaw's, and LexisNexis has certain databases that are only LexisNexis. Okay, if you're probably practicing in a rural state like Iowa or somewhere like that, Westlaw is probably the best. Okay, and I don't want to get into the reasons why, but in California, it's a really close call between LexisNexis and Westlaw because of the secondary materials that are available on LexisNexis. That is why I prefer them. Now I want to briefly talk about computer disks. Okay, they're kind of going the way of dinosaurs. They're generally fading out. They're still around, but they were all the rage when law started going digital. Okay, and the idea was they put things on a CD-ROM, and you could search that CD-ROM for the information, and to assure that it was up to date, they'd send you an updated disk every month. Okay. The problem was you could only get a certain amount of information on a CD-ROM. So what you kind of had to do a lot of times is literally go buy a CD tower and you load up like 20 or 30 disks to get everything that you wanted on a particular subject. But they're still around, and an attorney you work for might use them in a specialized area. Now let's talk about the internet. Okay, the internet, the good. There's a lot of stuff out there. The internet, bad. There's a lot of stuff out there. Okay, unless you're using a subscriber-based system like LexisNexis, Westlaw, or even Versus Law or Lois Law, something like that, you have to be very careful of what you're looking for when you're looking on the internet for anything, but particularly in terms of legal research. Okay, don't assume that because you find something on the internet as it pertains to the law is accurate or true. Remember, you're getting this stuff for free. And so what's it worth? Well, I think you know the answer to that question. On the other hand, what you really have to do is you have to evaluate the site and where it's coming from. For example, if we're going to, UCLA's law school or law library website, we could probably be pretty accurate that the information is correct. If we're going to, Ask Law or lawyers.com or joelawgod.com, okay, obviously those are sites you have to use and think about with a little bit of skepticism. Just evaluate the source. That's my main point. There are also what I call online non-legal databases as well, and you need to be, we're not going to really talk about them in this class or work with them in this class, but you need to be aware of them. Okay, for example, you want to know who owns a particular piece of property. Well, in Kern County, I would go to, there's a website for the county recorder's office. And you can look at there, or you can go to the tax assessor's office and find that information. You can find out things like birth and death records online, whether somebody has a judgment against them, if they've been sued and they lost. Tax liens, whether there's tax liens on an individual or a piece of property, maybe like a car that you're buying from somebody, and also criminal records, divorce proceedings. There's literally hundreds of websites, usually at the state level or at the county level, that you can search on the web to find out all kinds of different information. Now, okay, let's say your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you're just dating them and you want to know if they have a criminal record. Okay, well, one of the things you can do is you actually go to the Kern County court website and you can search by their name and see if they've been, arrested or convicted of anything, within the last 10 years or so. Okay. One of the ones they talk about is Accurint. Okay, that's something we can use. Like one of the best reasons to use that is to try to find somebody's assets. Okay, when you might not notice, but when you like actually sue somebody and you win, the court doesn't get your money from you, doesn't get the money for you. You have to go out and collect it yourself. And so to do that, you have to find out where, like, maybe where their bank accounts are, where they own real property, whether they own their cars free and clear, where they go to work, all that type of stuff. Okay, so Accurint is one of those things that can help you locate assets. You can also do background checks and things like that. And another one of those is AutoTrack. Okay, there's lots of them out there. I don't know if those two are particularly really good or really bad, but they are mentioned in the book. I haven't had to go out and collect a judgment in a while. Okay, let's move on to slide 24, which is evaluating criteria for internet resources. Okay, I briefly talked about this already. Okay, remember, evaluate. If it's Lexis or Westlaw, you're pretty sure it's going to be okay. Probably Versus, Lois, you're okay. Anything else, look at it with a little skepticism. Okay. Unlike print resources, things that are posted on the internet don't go through an editorial process. Okay. It's what we call unfiltered. Okay. And there's really, no recourse if they do get something wrong, right? Okay. You're on your own. You read it on the internet. Okay, you didn't like pay them for the book or anything. Okay, so the burden is on you to evaluate the particular resource. Okay, as I said earlier, if it's coming from a government website, government, okay, they're government employees, so let's view it with minimal suspicion as to the accuracy. Law school, generally okay, and like I said, commercial-based websites. Those are usually okay. Give you an example of a good one. Federal law, you go to USA.gov, okay, and you can research statutes and cases on there, and you could have a pretty good you can assume that it's going to be pretty correct. Okay, state law stuff. Okay, if you look at the top of this of my web page or the page for the class, there are some state law websites there and some federal ones. The ones that I put up there are like California codes, California Code of Regulations. FindLaw's okay. I wouldn't rely on them 100%, but they're okay. Google Scholar is a good one to find cases. I'd invite you to look at that, but I wouldn't necessarily rely on that 100% for accuracy. Also, law schools will have access, usually online for free, to their law review articles. I generally don't find law review articles which are either written by professors because they have to publish stuff, or by students so they can put it on their resume that they don't publish law school article. I generally don't find law school articles particularly helpful, or law review articles particularly helpful. They're more an intellectual exercise than anything. But you can get them for free on most law schools' websites. Okay, I will tell you one good one. I'll shout out a little prof to my alma mater, which is McGeorge, University Pacific McGeorge School of Law. If you're looking at a California statute and it's a new one, okay, they have in their law review every year, they're called green sheets, which I'm sure they're not printed in green on the internet. What they do is they summarize the major legislative bills that were passed by Sacramento during that year. And so they say, okay, this is the new laws passed, and this is what we think it means. Okay, and that's a pretty good one if you're dealing with a very new law in California, particularly one that no courts have really decided what it means yet. Green sheets is actually pretty good and pretty helpful. Now, as far as actual cases, if you just want to look up a case like Griswold versus Connecticut, you can get that for free. Okay, now why, if we can get like cases for free, would we want to pay money to like Lexis or Westlaw? And the reason is, one, they provide a summary of the case, and they provide head notes that tell you what they think the issue is. But we're going to find out later you never quote a head note. But they summarize the case for you, and it makes it easier to find other cases that deal with that case instead of having to read the case and kind of try to figure it out on your own. That's one of the main reasons that we would rather look at a case that is on Lexis, Nexis, or Westlaw than we would just reading it off the net, is because there are some really helpful tools that they write themselves that will save us a lot of time. Okay, but if you're just looking for a case, I think like the best one right now is that Google Scholar at the top of the page. Okay, you can look on that. There's two little buttons, and you push the one for like here. Let me pull it up right now. It's the one for I'm pulling up Google Scholar right now as we speak, and just hit the one that says legal documents instead of articles or whatever, and you can look at a particular court, like California courts, and if you know the name of the case or the case citation, you can pull it right up. Okay, one other thing that has changed a lot in terms of the digital world versus the print world is what they call electronic case management. I'm on slide 33. And the reason I bring this up is if you want to file something in the federal district court, okay, which for Bakersfield here and most of the southern San Joaquin Valley all the way up to Sacramento is the Eastern District Federal Court. They do not accept paper anymore. If you want to file documents with them, whether it's a complaint or a motion or a letter to the judge, whatever, you have to file it online. Okay, I don't know if they have some special exception for like improper, which means when you represent yourself, you know, non-lawyer people where they still accept paper. I don't know, but I know this: if you're a lawyer, nothing is on paper anymore. It's all digital, and you have to sign up and get an account and file all of your documentation electronically. So we've saved a few trees. That's all I'm going to say in this week's lecture. Fortunately, it's fairly short. You will have a quiz this week, and you will have a homework assignment, and I will have an alternative assignment for those of you that were not able to get to the law library as well. Have a great week.